Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon to you, madam. So basically, what is FOB and what is CIF contract in terms of shipping? Right. So today, my friends and I, Asyikin, Shaheez, and me myself, Mohamad Fazli bin Mohamad Hanafiah. The student ID is 012015336 from MSU Shah Alam with blended mode. Going to present to you about FOB and CIF contract. So we're gonna take a look in depth what is FOB and CIF contract. So sit back and enjoy my presentation. So basically, what is free on board definition? A shipping term that indicates the point at which the responsibility for goods transfers from the seller to the buyer. So the key element of FOB contract is the location where the title and risk shift from the seller to the buyer. Alright, let's take in depth what is FOB contract when it is on act. There are two FOB contracts on act. First, the FOB origin and the destination. So the origin. So the buyer assumes responsibility for the goods and the associated costs as soon as they leave the seller's premises or factory. So basically the seller does not have liable afterwards. So from the origin spot or from the origin of goods and associated costs, starting from the seller's place, which is under responsibility of the buyer. So FOB origin they originated from the seller's place, point of starting point. All associated goods, all associated documents, all associated costs would be bear by the buyer. Alright, so that is what is FOB origin. So how about FOB destination? So the seller is responsible for the costs and risks associated with transportation until the goods are delivered to the buyer's designated location. So the sellers are held liable towards the costs and risks associated with transportation until the goods reach to the buyer's location. So what is cost insurance and freight contract? Another widely used international trade term that encompasses of additional responsibilities compared to FOB contract. So CIF contract not only specify the point at which risk transfers, but also include provision for insurance and freight costs. Alright, so CIF on act. How CIF act? Alright, first cost in CIF contract. It differs from the FOB. So the seller, so in CIF contract for the cost, the seller is responsible for the cost of the goods transportation to the destination port and marine insurance. So basically the seller held responsible towards the cost of shipping the goods towards the destination spot. Alright. And then the insurance in CIF contract, it requires the seller to obtain insurance coverage for the goods during transit. So basically, CIF insurance in CIF contract, the seller are held responsible towards the insurance of the goods itself until the goods reach the destination point, right? And third, freight in CIF contract, the seller again arrange and pays for the freight services, ensuring that the goods reach the destination port as per the contract terms. Alright, so basically in CIF, the seller is responsible or held liable towards the cost, towards the insurance, and towards the freight of the goods from starting point up until destination point. So, let's take a look. What is good, what is bad about FOB, and what is good or what is bad about CIF. Alright, let's move. Comparison. Let's make a comparison between FOB and CIF. First, we need to take a look at the freight cost. As for the FOB, the buyer bears the cost of transportation from the seller's location to the destination. As I mentioned before, it's same like we buy online product and we need to bear the transportation cost. And it differs from CIF. The CIF, the seller itself covers the cost of freight, including transportation to the destination port. So usually in CIF, it involves a high value goods or high value product that need to be insured by and is liable and the seller is liable towards the product. Okay, second, move to destination of delivery between FOB and CIF. As for FOB, can be of FOB origin or FOB destination, indicating whether the seller's responsibility extends to the destination port. As for CIF, the responsibility of the seller extends to the destination port and the buyer takes over from that point onward. Let me give a very simple example, like Samsung sends a very high value lens. So basically the seller, the Samsung, will bear the cost of transportation, the cost of insurance, the cost of everything until it reach the destination port. So from the destination port, the buyer now will held responsible. Alright, so the responsibility of the seller extend to the destination port, and from the destination port, the buyer takes over from that point onward. Alright, okay, now let's take a look at the comparison between FOB and CIF. First, the risk and title transfer differences between FOB and CIF. As for FOB, risk and title transfer from the seller to the buyer at the point specified in the contract, whether it's the origin or the destination. So basically, the buyer needs to tell the seller in detail risk and title transfer starting from where, either from the destination or either from the origin or destination. But it differs from CIF. Basically, CIF risk and title transfer from the seller to the buyer. But in addition, CIF contracts include insurance coverage during the maritime transit. Alright, as for the insurance responsibility, the buyer for FOB contract, the buyer is responsible for obtaining insurance coverage for the goods during transit. So basically, the buyer is held liable towards its own goods. Alright, that's for FOB contract. For CIF contract, the seller is responsible for obtaining and covering the cost of marine insurance for the goods during transit. Right? So move to additional costs and risk during transit. So for FOB, additional costs primarily involve the cost of goods and transportation. Any additional costs such as insurance, such as maybe there are port charges are the buyer's responsibility. So basically the buyer needs to pay their own costs for their own good, but differs from CIF. CIF primarily involve the cost of goods and transportation. Any additional costs such as insurance, maybe destination port costs, the custom costs are the buyer's responsibility. Alright, so risk during transit. As for the FOB contract, the buyers assume the risk during the transportation process once the goods leave the seller's premises. Alright. As for CIF, the seller remains responsible for the goods and associated risk until they reach the destination port. To conclude, the comparison between FOB and CIF. So basically, FOB is all about the buyers is or held responsible towards its own goods from the origin point towards the destination point. But as for CIF, the seller itself is held liable towards their own towards their own goods or products. So basically, in CIF contract, the seller will bear all costs from the shipping cost, from the transportation cost, the destination port cost. So the seller will insurance is under seller's responsibility. I think that's all from me. So let's move to my next teammate for case law. Thank you so much, Madam. Assalamualaikum. Again, my name is Muhammad Fazli bin Mohamad Hanafiah. Assalamualaikum, Madam.
Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera. My name is Nurul, Najihah Binti Yusoff, and today I will be presenting the case law of FOB and CIF contract. The first one is FOB contract. First case law is Arnold versus Theodore. Okay, the buyer claimed damages because goods were damaged during transit, and the court outcomes is court said seller fulfilled their duty when goods were on board, risk passed to the buyer. The second one is Oceanic Electronic versus Global Shipping. Buyer claimed goods were not in good condition as per FOB. The outcome is court ruled that seller's responsibility ended when goods were on board. Damages were totally buyer's responsibility. The third one is Harbour Merchants versus Sea Transport, which is buyer complaint of delays in loading under FOB. And then the court said loading should be prompt, but delays didn't change the transfer of risk to the buyer. The fourth one is Pacific Textiles versus Atlantic Traders, which is substitute vessel were used, but goods were loaded at the named port. The court said that using an alternative vessel didn't breach the FOB contract. The last but not least is Sunrise Export versus Twilight Imports. Okay, buyer claim financial losses due to late loading in FOB contract. The outcome is court ruled that seller's failure to load on time was a breach, and buyer were awarded for the damages. The second one is CIF contract, which the first case is Wilcox Australian versus Blue Marine Insurers, where CIF contract didn't clearly define the insurance. Court stressed the importance of clarity and resolve ambiguities against the party drafting the contracts. The second one is Golden Grains versus Sea Assurance Company, where buyers suffered losses, argued CIF insurance was insufficient. The court outcome is they held the seller responsible for obtaining adequate insurance. Insurer were compensated. Insurer should compensate the buyer. The third one is Maritime Goods versus Coastal Insurance. CIF insurance excludes certain risks and goods were damaged. So court held seller liable for failing to obtain the insurance covering critical risks. The fourth one is Global Traders versus Ocean Insure. CIF contract specify an insurer, but buyer questioned their financial stability. The court said the seller's choice of insurer was crucial and they could be liable for losses. The last but not least is Transatlantic Export versus Pacific Insurance, where CIF contract required buyer to share insurance costs. Buyer dispute, but court upheld the contract terms, okay, emphasizing the legality of agreed upon cost sharing. So I think that's all for my part. Thank you.
So in conclusion, FOB and CIF contracts are very important components of the internet for international trade. Each with its distinct implications for both the buyers and sellers. FOB contracts focus on the point of transfer of risk and title. It provides flexibility and clarity in terms of transportation costs. While for CIF contracts, it goes a bit further by encompassing insurance and freight costs, offering a more comprehensive solution for buyers seeking added security during the shipping process. Now, in the end, the choice between FOB and CIF depends on the preferences, the risk tolerance, and logistical preferences of all the parties involved. Both contracts do play a crucial role in helping a smooth and efficient global trade to occur. It contributes to the growth and interconnectedness of economies all around the world.